My name is Tim Arnold. I'm a district e-learning specialist at Richmond Community Schools, and I also serve as a digital learning coach for Keep Indiana Learning. The session that I'm going to present today is entitled Building the Blend. And it's really going to come in three parts. Part one will deal with the what and the why of blended learning. Part two will be more of a DIY section, show you some frameworks that you can use as you blend the learning in your classroom. And part three will dig into specifics on voice and choice and other aspects of blended learning. Look, here's the deal. We've survived a very tough time in education. And everybody who's been in the classroom and connected or associated with the classroom has learned new skills. It's time to take some of those skills and apply them to a more traditional classroom setting to really get that golden time with your students, that small group or one-on-one time. And that's what Building the Blend is all about. So I hope you'll join me for parts 1, 2, and 3 of Building the Blend here on Keep Indiana Learning. Hello, and welcome to part 1 of Building the Blend. As stated before, my name is Tim Arnold. I am a district e-learning specialist with Richmond Community Schools and also a digital learning coach with Keep Indiana Learning. Let's start with some good news. Not all is lost. The last year and a half has been tough. Anybody who's been in a classroom, associated with a classroom, has seen things they've never seen before. The good news is we've survived. And the purpose of this presentation is to take some of those things that we developed during that time, whether you were virtual, whether you were hybrid, whether you were traditional, whether you were, as my school corporation, a little bit of all of those. Let's take some of those things that you've learned, those new ideas, those new tools, some new processes, maybe some new experience, and probably in some cases some new successes, and for sure some new failures. And let's use those in a more traditional classroom through blended learning to make a great experience for our students. One of the first things I ask teachers as I meet with them is to help me make a list of things, new things that you've developed. And I get a lot of things. Here are a few. From using Jamboard, to using choice boards, to using Google Slides. A lot of people had to dive in and learn how to do Google Meet right away, or Padlet, or EdSite, or other aspects of Canvas or their LMS. All of those things are still usable, and we'd like to find you a way to continue to use them in a way that functions successfully for you and your students. And blended learning is the answer to that. The goal of this presentation and the goal of blended learning is to gain that one-on-one or small group instruction time and to find that in a traditional day. The method of getting there is to create a blended learning environment that uses the best of traditional and online or virtual instruction. What we're trying to get to is that golden time. I talk with so many teachers, many of them who worked in a hybrid environment or a virtual environment, who realized the benefit of that small group or one-on-one instruction. And now that they're back to full classrooms, they're struggling to find that. We even have some really interesting data in my district that shows some amazing growth due to small class sizes of the hybrid schedule we were on, even with half the number of days. Smaller sizes, less discipline problems, more learning. The data is very distinct in the area of reading. And so that's one of the whys of why we're really working to get back to this golden time through blended learning. Now, we need to acknowledge some pain points because these are real. If you're a teacher who's made it through this last year and a half, 2 years, and now you're back in a traditional classroom of 25 to 30 plus students, you're experiencing these whole class instruction pain points. At times, there's a lack of student engagement motivation. Trying to meet the needs of the diversity that is in your classroom is tough. That often leads to frustrations with classroom management and behavior. And so blended learning is one of the things that we can offer to help combat some of those pain points, some of those things that we know are a struggle. Specifically addressing the pain points with the presentation today, if we speak of lack of motivation or engagement, we're going to focus on student agency or student choice. When we talk about meeting the diverse needs of students, we're going to look at differentiation, because within that small group of students, or in the station rotation that we're going to look at, differentiation becomes easier and more connected to individual student needs. And then finally, in the area of classroom management and behavior, some control over path, pace, time, maybe even place. Ask you to give up a little bit of your control and hand it over to your students to engage them and keep them on task. So here we are at blended learning. As a definition, it's any combination of face-to-face traditional instruction and online learning, specifically online instruction and assessment, not just using technology. And what I mean by that is there were an awful lot of us early on that were doing what I would call tech enhanced. This definition comes from Blended Learning Universe, where students are using technology, but it's the same place. The devices are supporting traditional instruction, and it may enhance learning experiences, but it's not really transforming them. What we're looking for is a chance for students, in part, to have some control over where, when, and how they work. Devices then are used to leverage personalization, differentiation for students, and that's a shift in classrooms that provides that integrated learning experience. So nothing wrong with tech enhanced, but we'd like to move towards blended learning. Why blended learning? Well, we've got anecdotal evidence, and we even have some data, as I mentioned, in my corporation. But there are some studies that have been done, and they show things like 76% of educators believe blended learning is beneficial. 59% of teachers report that students were more motivated. And 73% of educators who use blended learning observe an increase in student engagement. I'll take all of those. The basis for the presentation, these are my go-tos for blended learning. Catlin Tucker, a couple of books of hers here, and from Indiana, Michelle Eaton and The Perfect Blend. We have both of these in our professional learning library, and I have spent a lot of time dog-earing the pages of these books as I go out to work with teachers and to prepare for presentations such as this. So although blended learning is the goal, and there are many ways to do it, we're actually going to focus on station rotation. I think it's the first and the best one to start with. And so that'll be the focus of this particular presentation. Giving students some control over time, pace, path, or place. Not all at the same time, but some each time. And so with that, we're going to focus on station rotation. Some of the keys, if you want to boil it down, this is not going to be a one-size-fits-all. That whole group instruction model, that's what we're trying to move away from. We're looking at teachers, in a sense, cloning themselves through the use of technology, being in two places at once, and teaching in those small groups or one-on-one time. So as we dig in here, a little bit deeper dive on the aspects of blended learning that we're going to focus on. And these come from The Perfect Blend, Michelle Eaton's book. Pace. We know that learning is no longer restricted to the pace of an entire classroom. So we're going to break that apart through stations. Path. Learning is no longer restricted to the pedagogy used by the teacher. We're going to offer some choice. Time. Learning is no longer restricted to the school day. There can be some items that happen with you at school happen on their own at school, and happen outside of school. Place, learning is no longer restricted to the walls of the classroom. And then I think the two most powerful for me, voice and choice. Giving students choice in the learning pathway, we know it increases their interest and their ownership and their motivation. And then choice, providing options for students in regards to the format and to a degree the content of their learning. So those are the big pieces and aspects that we'll be looking at. As we delve into station rotation, specifically we'll be looking at the building of teacher-led stations, and then offline stations, and then online stations. Oftentimes I'll add a fourth, which is extension activities. But here you see some ideas for each of those stations. Teacher-led, focused on differentiation and engagement. Offline, perhaps some more traditional type activities, paper and pencil activities. And then online, personalized, collaborative, creative, reflective. One of the first things I do when I meet with teachers is I actually put them through a station rotation experience. And this is one that I put together, which walks them through 4 stations. We set a timer. One of them deals with using Google Slides to do vocabulary. Another, session 2, deals with Google Docs, and this is actually a station where I'm teaching the technology. Another option for any stations that you put together, if there's a specific technology that your students need to know, that can be a station. Station 3 is a small group meeting with me. And then station 4 is a Padlet station. And I'll have people in the session go through there. And when we're done, I'll ask them 3 key questions. What happened behind the scenes to create this lesson? What did you notice about the lessons? And any thoughts, suggestions, or recommendations that they might have. Here are some things that I've gotten on what happened behind the scenes. They see there's a lot of upfront work. Absolutely true. Lots of preparation with tools. Very much front-loaded in terms of the teacher preparation. In terms of what they noticed, you'll see here on the screen, they all talk about it being interactive and engaging. And that's what we're going for. In terms of thoughts, suggestions, or recommendations, my favorite and one that I've dealt with myself, I'm not sure why I ever stopped using station rotation. I'm from the middle school and high school world, and I used it with a lot of middle school classrooms, and I'm not sure why I didn't do it more with high school classrooms. So with that, we'll say, hey, it's time to build the blend. Time to generate some ideas. And we'll continue with that in part 2.